Hello, and you're very welcome along to another edition of the JMAC podcast. I'm John McMahon, and of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by orgarech.com. Use my promo code JMAC podcast to get 15% off on the website. Getting into the heat and trust of the championship, get yourself organised on orgarech.com. And tonight, I'm joined by freelance commentator Killian Whelan to go through all of last weekend's championship action and, of course, this weekend's championship action. So, really looking forward to chatting to Killian. Stephen, how are you, sir?
Good evening to you, John. How are you?
Good, yeah, can't complain. Sun split the stones. We're spoiled with this weather, I have to say.
Absolutely. I know we had a bit of rain down here yesterday, but that probably just dampened the dust a little bit. It looks like it's heading towards another lovely weekend, heated weekend, and more championship action and everything to look forward to next weekend. So, but as we talk right now, I'd say there's a few lads in Louth now are probably, with their bellies up facing towards the sun and lying in the grass, and who can blame them after 68 years, huh?
Incredible, absolutely incredible. No, it was absolutely brilliant, and of course, all the talk leading into that game we'll talk about now in a few minutes. But the game yesterday was just brilliant, and the scenes, and I just loved Samuel Roy's speech after. And there was no kind of PR nonsense. It was none of it was scripted. It was literally just pure emotion, and he was barely fit to talk. The excitement in his voice, it was good for the soul.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. Brought back memories for me, as a Leishman, we haven't won too much, and I always remember 2003, and the year that we had through the league, and then the championship win, and to see Louth do it, it definitely brought back memories of that. The only thing I suppose I was disappointed from Louth fans, it would have been absolutely brilliant to see them invade the pitch, just to see that, when you saw what happened in Clonus, and you saw it happen in Castlebar, it's just such a pity that the Louth fans weren't able to get to do that. But that's what it is. I remember doing that in 2003, and I still have a piece of grass from Crow Park that day, so like it's I imagine what it was like for people. With great spectacle, and geez, John, who knew when you took the dubs out of it that we actually could get a crowd in a match and fill Crow Park and have a huge amount of colour, and it just was great to watch yesterday.
Yeah, it was just powerful. It was just brilliant, and well done to Louth. It was a serious victory in Croke Park yesterday, and I suppose Killian will crack right into the action on Saturday the 10th of May. It was the Ulster Senior Football Championship final between Armagh and Donegal. It was Armagh 28 points, Donegal 223 in Clonus after extra time. My Jesus, Killian, I was at this game. It was the most terrific game of football. It just was unbelievable. I seen people hanging about till about 9 or 10 o'clock after the game. Supporters, great, and obviously the Donegal players, Armagh players hanging around. It was just brilliant. Such a fantastic. Obviously the weather was good, and obviously the vibes in Clones beforehand, and the pubs are absolutely jammers, and it was unreal for the town, no doubt. I think someone said it was a Pork Lodge said after the game. I think it was about 1 million quid, probably ton the GA invested, from ticket sales and everything goes into it. But a remarkable occasion, a remarkable game. So many talking points. I was watching the Sunday game last night, and I know the Saturday game was on and couldn't do it much justice, but I think there should have been a show nearly dedicated to everything that happened at the weekend. Rian O'Neill turns up with his gear bag, and sure, where do we start with this, Killian?
Yeah, it's the little bit of a soap opera around it as well, obviously with Rian back in it, and I suppose he was never too far away in the grand scheme of things, and knowing Geezer anyway, he wouldn't have put up with a whole lot of mess, and so he was giving Rian obviously his time and when he felt ready. But I'm sure he was keeping Rian in the loop and keeping the expectation levels there that he would re-emerge at some stage. I suppose I'd be disappointed from an Armagh point of view that they haven't got to win that Ulster title. I'm sure that was a target that they wanted to annex, and you're coming up against a Donegal team who have been the fly in the ointment over the last number of years. But it was a really, really spectacular game. Although you'd have to say Donegal should have had it over and done with in normal time. But that's the way it was. Again, it was another breakdown, and Armagh were able to capitalise on it. But I'd imagine, yeah, Clonus, God Almighty, white heat of championship action. And as someone said, I think it was Eamon O'Hara I heard mentioned on radio over the weekend, the weather seems to be have got to grips with the fact that our championship has moved back 2 months, that it was really, white heat action that you remember back, when we had a few good summers there back in the late noughties, and we had
all them years ago.
All those years ago, yeah. And the sun beating down in July, and you were ready for Ulster and Leinster finals. But look, the FRC lads will probably be grinning from ear to here. Imagine Fitzmaurice now and Jim Gavin. I'd say they're loving life at the minute because everything seems to have worked out. You know, you have of the
Mm.
4 provincial finals, you probably have had 3 good games, and the quality of scoring and everything. And even, you know, give Clare their credit. They didn't give up the ghost and they took some good scores themselves. But like Kerry are just in it, in I suppose on a different level to them at this minute. But like, you know, they'll be here. I'm just thinking back to our conversation a couple of weeks ago, John. You know that I we're talking about moving on these provincial series, and maybe we should be just focusing on Ireland action. And now we've had, you know, someone that's, I'm sure whoever commented on my negative talks about the provincial series is probably thinking, ha, ha, you know.
What's your reply to that, Killian? To send all the masses mad. What is your reply to that comment?
They said all the masses bad. Well, look, as I said, I don't think I knocked the provincial
No.
series. I'm actually delighted. I was probably fed up watching Dublin winning it. You know, the Leinster series became novel again once Dublin were out of it, and you had a new pairing inside it. And listen, John, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking Dublin at all. I would be firmly behind everything that Dublin have achieved because they had their house in order. They obviously financially were well structured, well put together, got the top sponsors on board, got their brand marketed, everything like that, had the players coming through, and you know were able to achieve the success. And that's what happens. And you have the right people in charge of it as well, and that was able to drive it. And you had like-minded individuals. Look at Louth. Louth's the population of it, and now are in a situation where they could be on about to win 3 provincial titles at minor, under 20, and senior. So they've 2 annexed already, and they're heading for, you know, potentially with the chance to win a third. So like for a county, okay, they have 2 of the biggest provincial towns in Leinster and probably in the country, in the one county. That's something else. But like they're the smallest county in the country. Um, and like geographically and everything, they just pull together. And you know, it's great to see, as we said then, that they were able to get over the line. But Louth have always been a strong footballing county. They've always belied their, I think, their status as as I said, a small population base or whatever. But they seem to, again, I think once you have your ducks in a row in the background and everything's heading pulling in the right direction, that then is reflected on the football field, and that seems to be what they've done. You know.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, like obviously the talk going into this game, and like I know that probably sent shockwaves flying around. Obviously, like I think who was it? Who broke the news? It was Morris Brosnan broke the news about Rian O'Neill being back, and obviously people start coming up with ideas like, is this the man going to win our man Ulster title today? Like, but we're talking about a man that's we all don't really know why he's been away, and obviously that's a personal reason for Rian. Like, but no doubt he would like to be part of it. But I think an Ulster final is a massive game to kind of come on in, whatever, so on and so forth. Maybe we've seen worse in the past potentially, but it really did kind of send shockwaves. But the game itself, Killian, I don't think you might. Well, you might get better this year, but to get up to that quality and level, it'll be very hard to see again this year. But what a game we had on Saturday!
Ah, yeah, what a game! But I don't knock it just yet, John. I think we you know, maybe get out of the group stages. We're going to see obviously a couple of games in this. You know, I hate using the term, but the group of death, you know, there's going to be a few encounters. I would imagine they're going to be quite close. But we get out into the All Ireland then knockout stages. I'd be hoping that we're going to see some of these juggernauts come head to head again. You know, and yeah, like again, go. I'm not sure. Like I haven't talked to Kieran McGuinness now in this year, I suppose, and like I just don't think in his philosophy that we would have seen Rian O'Neill parachuted in there, you know, because I think he's a guy who's loyal to those who have, you know, trucked with him and obviously given their all this year, and he's going to give them the first opportunity rather than obviously parachute. Now we all know the Rian's ability, but you know who was he going to take the place of? You know that's the scenario here. Like at the end of the day, the 15 guys that are on the field, he might be better than, you know, I suppose 10 of them, but there's guys that are still in the situation there that have got McGuinness to an Ulster final. So you know, unless the full panel was aware or something like that. But to me, it would have been a very unusual move of Kieran McGuinness. Now, I wouldn't have been surprised to have seen him come on, maybe, you know, but I don't think I was probably expecting to see him at the start. And like when you, I suppose, when you were Connaughty and O'Sheen O'Neill having the you know ultimately the game that they had, you know, it probably was going to be hard to fit in. And like Creeley and O'Neill in the middle of the field are doing quite well. So you know, Reen I'm sure would have got in there somewhere, but it would have been, I suppose, unusual knowing the philosophy that obviously McGuinness works under. But like I'm sure Kieran would be disappointed that they had to, fight so hard to get back in that encounter to force the extra time, because I don't think Armagh played particularly well. If you're looking at, like, Donegal should have had this one in normal time, and that's probably something Jim McGuinness would be a little bit concerned about. But I suppose he then was able to get lads off the bench, and I have to give a shout out to my old mate Niall O'Donnell. Niall has been, I suppose, struggling along there as well and not getting a start. And I'm sure he could have sulked about that and whatever. But like, he's a classy enough footballer, and he came on and gets 2 points and ultimately, of course, kicks the winner. And there was a nice bit of skill involved in doing that. So I was delighted for him that he was obviously able to achieve that. But yeah, like a cracking encounter, no question about it. Clone, a Saturday evening, championship weather, everyone happy with life, and it was ultimately great to see. And as you said, it had everything, even including the little bit of a spillover, of course, at the end.
Spillover is very interesting. It was a great game of football, and I think even like it was just pound for pound. It was just like a boxing match. It was just punch after punch. Like the two O'Sheens, and I was saying to O'Sheen Langan and Pork Lodge after the game that, like, and it was O'Sheen Connolly, O'Sheen O'Neill. It was nearly a day for O'Sheens, O'Sheen Gallen for Donegal. All O'Sheens were fantastic, but I think even like O'Sheen Connolly at stages in that game, Killian, was absolutely superb, and he really led the charge for Armagh. It just score after score, and even Rian O'Neill's brother O'Sheen O'Neill, he was fantastic. Well, obviously both men done the bulk of the scoring for Armagh. And, like, it was good to kind of see Armagh kind of play with that bit of expansion and kind of play with that bit of freedom, because for so many years it's protect the ball, keep the ball, and obviously with these new rules things open up a bit, and maybe the Donegal defence was slightly open at times, but yeah, them two boys really stood up on Saturday.
Yeah, and do you know what? Like, Connaughty, I suppose had a league campaign. He probably wasn't shooting the lights up, but God, since we got into championship, he's really stepping up. And again, the form that obviously we saw him win awards last year. So there's no question about it. I love him as a footballer. I just think he gives absolutely everything. He's on the end of stuff. He wants to be involved. He wants to change the course of it. And for a young man on the intercounty scene, I'm really impressed with his form. O'Neill then has probably lived in Rian's shadow a little bit, just in recent times. And I think he showed then again the other night, that coupled from the outside the arc and everything, and he just was, really, I think, embraced the whole element of taking on a bit of leadership. Now, he kind of, we've seen him a little bit in the league, and I think he played very well against Kerry, if I remember rightly, back in March. Kicked a few points against Tyrone, but he really came into his own then in the Ulster final as well. So again, I just think there's a couple of guys there that McGuinness has given maybe a little bit more responsibility to
Yeah.
this year, or putting something like, I think I have to give a shout to Jarly O'Burns. I think Jarlath has shown tremendous ability last year, where he wasn't maybe getting the start, was coming into games and whatever, and would still have a major part to play. But he's been starting this year, and I think has had a huge influence on the game, and maybe the new rules or whatever is suiting him. He's getting the opportunity to get forward and be involved, and he seems to be a man that's obviously knitting or linking up play quite well. So there's a few lads this year, as I said, that may not have been the go-to men last year, who, well, apart from Connaughty, but that are probably taking on some of the responsibility, and that's obviously, in the grand scheme of things, if you need 1 to 28 to win you an All Ireland, I'm sure McGuinness is happy that some of these guys seem to have, as I said, stepped up again.
Yeah, they were absolutely superb. Now that's said throughout. Like, it wasn't just in phases, or it wasn't just the pop shots. It was just they were consistently excellent. I thought Oisin Connolly, geez, at times. To be honest with you, I know Michael Murphy got man of the match, but I know obviously you have to give it to the winning team. But Jesus, Oisin Connolly had to be in contention at the weekend. I really do.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. But look, I think obviously if it was Armagh got the winning score, I think he was there. I think for that. Again, as I said, he just was a star man. And I listen, another man they have to pick out, like, McQuillan is just, I think, a phenomenal player. Like, he's
Uh,
just, again, so much heart and drive, and a really tasty footballer, and backs his ability as well. I just really impressed with him. And as I said, maybe these rules have allowed some of these guys to flourish as players. And while we might have seen a half back as having to be a defensive unit, the odd time you'd have this marauding uh, wing back, that would be getting forward. But if if the lad in the right went forward, the guy in the left was probably told he had to sit back and so forth. And now under new rule, obviously all that kind of scenario can change, and you're starting to see essentially, you know, guys who could very easily play now in the half forward lane, obviously half backs, and that was something McGuinness would have tried in Kildare back in the day under old rules and whatever. But I think he's allowing some of these guys to I would imagine under new rules to express themselves. But they've been, I have to give a shout out to him. I'm just really really impressed with him and some of his all winning ability, turnovers and so forth, John, have been excellent, and he probably was a little bit unlucky at the end then that, when he claimed the kick out that he didn't maybe get a free. And I know that was something McGuinness obviously hopped off, and probably having a bit of a gripe. But maybe, I suppose it's the way the referee saw it, he allowed the play to continue, and we know ultimately what happened.
Yeah. It was just such a remarkable game of football, and like I think even Donegal, in fairness, at the end, the game tied up, and then I just think they let Armagh back into it, and they kind of took these pop shots at the end, two chances, and then they kind of let Armagh, like you're supposed to, this all great, mighty defense that they have, it just unlocked, and Armagh got through for the equalising score at the end. Like, so I think obviously we'll touch on to Donegal now in a couple of seconds, but I think Donegal will be kind of disappointed with how they did let Armagh back into it at the end. And I think if you are, and maybe not to put too much pressure on them, but if they are going to win an All Ireland title this year, like obviously, Killian, you're watching football a longer time than me, but I think if you're going to be a really serious All Ireland contenders, you kind of have to drive the point home. You kind of have to put the foot down on the pedal. You can't let these teams back in these crucial moments of games. Dublin didn't do it. Kerry didn't do it back in the day. You just need to be relentless, Killian, or is that, you know?
Yeah, maybe it's easy saying under new rule, John. Because like it's asking an awful lot of defenders, and I've seen that now with a couple of intercounty footballers I've mentioned. The defender's life now is hard going. Now, maybe you should say to them, look, shut up and stop griping there, lads. For years now you had 12 guys back helping you out, and now you had to go and play ball here a little bit. But there probably is a little bit more physical exertion now expected out of your defensive unit. So the style of play has probably changed. So maybe Donegal are not able to lock it down like they used to, but definitely tired minds. I just think it was a little bit of that, they just kind of like they took off Moore and they took off McFadden, probably thinking in a little bit that they had stirred the game. Those men had obviously given a lot, and Jim removed them. And maybe then, just Armagh seized on a few opportunities and took it. But I would agree with you. I think Donegal, I don't necessarily think it was, maybe tiredness played a part, John. Like at the end of the day, what, 18-degree heat, sun even a white hot atmosphere, just really, and Clonus, as you know, being a bowl of that it is, like it can probably suck every little bit of air out of you. Um, I just think Donegal took on shots that they might not necessarily have, and that's probably something McGuinness will be working on. That under a bit of pressure, they decided rather than work it through the channels or whatever, wait for the right option, that they rushed a few kicks. Now maybe that's the Armagh pressure or whatever that came on as well. But yeah, I would say I would agree with you on that. I do think that if they were probably to see an overall title come back to Donegal, they will be maybe just he might just be a little bit concerned about how the game managed maybe in normal time that last 4 or 5 minutes. And you saw, don't want to jump into the Louth game too soon, but you saw how well Louth did that yesterday. Like I think the last time they were saying Meath touched the ball was in the 63rd minute. So Louth owned the ball for the last 7 minutes of the game. So like that's something that maybe I think Donegal might have to factor. But look, as I said, Ulster Championship up against Armagh. At the end of the day, they won the title. They got there in the end after extra time. They have the title going home, and I got to see a picture this morning of Dara and Niall with the cup, and two happy men. I would imagine tired men and whatever, but happy that they got another Ulster title under their belt.
Yeah, absolutely. And Donegal, Killian, it was a serious performance for them as well. And I was just so impressed by their big, like it is a Kieran Thompson, Mihal Langan, and Jason McGee, and like they're big men, but my God, they can play football, and like there's so much ability. And I think it was Kevin McGurdy was kind of saying maybe Kieran Thompson is yet to get firing, but I still think he had a very good game on Saturday night, make no doubt about it. But they got some key scores at some key times, and like for big lads, they're not too bad.
Oh geez, yeah. Oh God, like Langan and Thompson would be too far off if you were putting a team together. Like of all these guys across the country, you'd be definitely giving them consideration. But Thompson, look, impressed enough with his performance. He has shown the odd show in the league, how good he obviously is. But like as some lads said, as you mentioned there, maybe some lads feel he wasn't firing. But sure, like he got 5 points against Monaghan. He got 4 points against Armagh. I think that's fairly good going from middle of the field, and then Langan as well popping up with a couple of scores per game. Like I think I said it in the last podcast that we did. I on a couple of occasions I had to try and stop Michael Langan or come up with game plans to try and stop him. And it wasn't always easy when we were facing him in college's action. But like as you said, big men marauding though, they're just able to cover the ground and kick fine scores. So look, Donegal won't be far away, John. There's no question about it. And when you have someone like Murphy, Jesus, like he just
The catch at one hand.
stop. Like he just like even at 34 years of age, he still has that gripe about him and that steel cold heart that he wants to win and he do everything and anything to get you out of the way and to put the ball in the net or over the bar. I don't know where he keeps getting his drive from, but obviously, if he's seeing on an opportunity, he feels that this current setup of rules and whatever is able to suit him, and that's obviously what they've gone for. But I think he still kicked 3 points. I don't know whether that the only thing, John. I don't know whether he's going to last too many extra times going forward. Like
No,
he definitely was. I wouldn't say limping around, but he was running on a bit of empty. I'd say
he
for about
was.
5-6 minutes before he was taken off. But that'll just show you he emptied the tank and gave it all. But I'd say he'd be hoping that lads, we're going to be winning anything. We need to be winning them in normal time.
Yeah, no, like watching him live as well, Killian. Like, and as someone said after the game, it's like he has pretty wing mirrors on him. He can see everything that's going on in the field. He's a serious operator. Obviously, coming back this year, playing under these new rules, on the committee of these new rules, which is obviously very interesting. But he had a great game again. Obviously getting man of the match. We'll talk about that in a couple of seconds, but he was very good. And obviously that catch with one hand, my God, like that is just, standard Michael Murphy at this stage to even do that when someone's so close to you marking you was so impressive. But his leadership throughout and even the scores that he got in the game were just incredible. Like, and like he's gone out of the games 2 years, Killian, but like it's like he never left.
Yeah, but he's a wily fox. Like he just like don't forget this guy had it at 16, 17, 18 years of age. Like we've been talking about this guy for the guts of Jesus.
15,
So it
16
won't be
years.
far off 20 years now at this stage. Like, that'll just tell you about the influence of Michael Murphy. But what impresses me, John, is this is not a disparaging comment now, but he might not be able to cover the ground that he would have covered in Croke Park
No,
10
he
years
can't.
ago,
No,
right?
he can't.
But
No.
he's able to be maybe like a Paul McGrath-esque kind of thing. He's able to read where he needs to be, and like at the end of the day, if Michael Murphy is between the two goalposts and he's 20 yards out and you can put the ball on top of him right in that general area, he's going to cause problems. So, it's probably up to other teams to stop Michael Murphy, the ball getting into Michael Murphy, not stopping Michael Murphy. That's a factor. Look, he's just, as you said, his ability to read and watch play and stuff like that. Like he was dragging guys out of central areas, and sure they can't ignore him. They can't say, "Oh, just go off over there, Michael. You'll be grand," because you just don't know what he's capable of doing. So he just he's clever enough, and I think that's allowed. I think Oisin Gallen is probably getting some of his old confidence back. It allows, McBurty probably takes, a little bit of heat to him. I think Dara will obviously, flourishes a bit under Michael as well. So, he's a key leader. They all look up to him. And I think he could be a massive factor if Sam Maguire is going up to the Highlands again. Like he's, as you said, you just can't take your eye off him, and ultimately he can be a major player in deciding how things are going to go. And of course, don't forget, he's able to play the dark arts too, and that could be hugely important.
And in fairness, he's very good at getting away with it because, in fairness, like I know Aidan Forker, like the head put back in February there, and that's we no one can excuse that. But watching Michael live, like there's a couple of like, and I'm a big fan of Michael Murphy, but there's a couple of decisions he did get away with on Saturday, make no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, but he's able to do it and sweet talk the referee then as well. He's all the like at the end of the day. John, if you were going to war and you're going into a championship game, I said, and you're picking a team of players like, Murphy's going to be in the hunt, and you're probably thinking, Michael, he may not, let's say, dislodge, a Clifford or whatever if you're putting in your team, but you might be able to get 20 minutes out of him or a half an hour out of him or something like that to just upset the full back line,
Mm,
and I'm sure he'd be doing enough and saying enough to be able to do that, and
mm.
look, he's, as I said, he's turned into an old fox at this stage, but like he's so much mileage on the tank. He has so much experience that, like I said, at the end of the day, if they somehow came away with the All Ireland title at the end of it, wasn't it worth it for 1 year, Michael, just to throw everything at it to see what would happen? And
And
it could happen.
I think that's what the plan is. Overall thoughts, Killian, and I was talking about this today. I think Donegal, and maybe as tough as this is for Armagh fans to hear and listen to, I just think Donegal down the stretch when it comes to it, and I know the one on Saturday, I just think Donegal are just that bit better than Armagh.
Yeah, but you still got Rian O'Neill to come back into this
I know that's huge as
Armagh
well.
setup. I don't think Armagh are at full tilt either. Like like, and it's not a case of, I'm not talking about performance. Like they're still turning in performances, but you can't rule them out. If you get
Oh
them,
no, you can't rule Armagh out and get Rian O'Neill
like
back,
you
but
get them back, in a big day in Croke Park. They play in Donegal again. Would you have the same result? I don't think Armagh would have the same performance that they had in normal time. Like great credit to Armagh that they were able to force that extra time. Because as I said, I think Donegal should have had it over and done with in normal time. But I think they'll be sore over the fact that they've lost. Another Ulster final, and
mm,
they haven't been able to get that Ulster title. I do think that was a target that they ultimately had. Um, but look, maybe as I said, it just fell the way it did for Donegal. But Donegal, to me, yeah, have put themselves in prime position. There's no doubt about it. If they're to be, if Sam Maguire is to go back up to Ulster this year, yeah, they've nudged ahead of Armagh, but
mm,
like there's so much still to play out, John, as you know. And
mm,
the one thing that Donegal have shown in over the year, and maybe this is why Murphy is back on the scene, is that they have on occasion probably flattered to deceive, that they in maybe a couple of All Ireland qualifying games, in the last couple of years, maybe didn't get the result or see out the result that they should have got. Do you understand me? And
yeah.
that then, you know, you're kind of saying like, oh, why weren't they in the All Ireland final last year? What was the difference? What stopped them? And so maybe as I said, just Murphy might be the glue that's going to hold all this thing together. But I still think, while they might have nudged ahead of Armagh, I still think in Croke Park, All Ireland semi final or whatever it might be, going back to what you said about 10 minutes ago, defensively, they may just have to have a look at that.
Yeah, it's just something I see. It's something that I kind of sprung into the head on Saturday, Killian. Obviously, there's the most smoke without fire in these big games. I suppose the fight at the end, and a lot of people are saying it was handbags. There was a lot of solid, I suppose, whatever you're having your set boxes, fists thrown, and very unsavory scenes. And then I still can't pinpoint what Donegal player made his way over to the Donegal bench to have his say on matters, and he definitely got what he asked for. Not what you want to see, and I think the GAR are going to investigate, and the pictures don't look great from it, and it was just unfortunate because obviously celebrations were ongoing. I think Jim McGuinness was basically giving a hug to his kids, and sure, Aidan Forker confronted him about things and just bits and bobs. You just don't want to see it. And don't get me wrong, tensions are high, emotions are high. It's an Ulster final, but can we just save it for one day?
Yeah, when you consider that, we talked about this before we came on, John, that, one thing that we seem to have, and again, the FRC will be happy with, is that the infractions during the game, they're practically non-existent now. That there's the yellow card count for an Ulster final was about four. No sendings off, nothing like that. It never got fractious on the field of play. We just got on with it and got moving in the game. You see, players don't have time now. If a guy gets fouled, he's up and gone straight away. You haven't time to be
No.
shouting too much about it. If you give the referee abuse, it's gone up 50 yards. I think that's one of the greatest rules that if they come up like, and as I said, I'm still not fully. I have to see out a full championship to I think to see, the elements of how I feel about all of these rules. I still have a question about the 2 pointers and the fact that it's taken, I think, from goals and stuff like that. But I I have an idea who it was, and I think you have an idea who it was too. I don't think you can. It's not sporting to go over and gesticulate over in front of the bench. I know you want to be happy and whatever, but turn to your own
But
club mates or county
yeah,
mates or whatever,
100%. Yeah,
and
like
you celebrate like that. I don't get the. But look, you've been in the white heat of action, and you've put a one up against your old rivals again. It's probably hard not to do. It's like
mm,
scoring a goal in an old firm derby or something like that.
mm,
Like you probably are going. You're going to get abuse for it, but you probably aren't going to the bench, of your opposing team and doing it because you're risking the wrath then of them, and you're probably bringing the game into disrepute. Um, I'm like Brendan Colley, I'd imagine, has gone off the field of play and everything like that, but like that's a charge, I think, of bringing the game into disrepute. The player that gesticulated towards the Armagh bench. I don't think he deserved him to get a box in the head, and then he was followed
no.
up on by a few others, and that's. But you might turn around and say, "Well, hold on. If he hadn't, I wouldn't have gone out and done that." But two rights don't make two wrongs don't make a right here in any way. Like even it up, it got messy, and then there was children and adults, everyone coming from everywhere, and the lads are still in a bit of a. I call it nearly a rolling mall then at that stage. Like there was only a little bit of slaps, but like even the guards got involved, and I think there was a couple of them ended up on the ground. Like it was just getting stupid. And then you have the pictures as well, like, and you see Forker,
Yeah.
and he has the finger out and he's wagging it at
Yeah,
Jim
whatever
McGuinness,
that
and
was about, yeah.
yeah, like, and same. Now maybe he's saying to Jim, "Yo, you put him up to it, or this is you. Look, this is your,
Potentially, yeah.
blah blah blah." But like McGuinness looks innocent enough that I think he was just saying, "Jesus, Hayden, I'm just trying to enjoy it with my kids here," like, and
Yeah.
that probably it looked a little bit worse than it probably was. But
Mm.
nah, I thought we were moving on from that kind of crap, like, and I thought that. As I said, that we're not seeing infractions on the field. It probably helps in the overall atmosphere of the game. So look, it was a stupid thing on the Donegal player's part. I'm not going to call anyone out here, but as I said, we all know who it was. I think, look, okay, if the GA investigated properly and correctly, there should be some element of a suspension or there's a fine or whatever happens. Like, but that fine will go into the county board. At the end of the day, John, to win the All Ireland, hey,
Who
I'll pay
cares?
any fine I want if we're going to win an All Ireland.
Mm, yeah, no, absolutely. It was probably an unfortunate point or an unfortunate talking away from an incredible day in Clones. It was an absolutely remarkable day, and obviously the crowd and obviously 28,000 people descended on Clones, and it was just the noise and the color. And in fairness, Killian, we've had this conversation a couple of weeks ago what the GA can do, and in fairness, I don't know who got it right on Saturday, but my God, the noise and atmosphere was incredible on Saturday. And when in fairness, and I said about the All Ireland a couple of times when I was at on a couple of occasions, like we can get things right when we put our heads together.
Yeah, but look, I'm not trying to pour water on this now or anything, John. I still think we could do more. There's no question about it. And lots more, and provide a bit more element of entertainment. It's still a little bit haphazard. Now I don't know what it was like. As I said, walking up the town of Clones, I'm sure it's a unique atmosphere. In that point, you were there. You'll be able to tell me. I just thought it was um, gas that probably I'm thinking back to maybe some of the heady days of the late noughties or sorry, the late 90s and early noughties Ulster finals in Clones, and there was people up in the field watching the match,
It was
and
on
I
Saturday.
think there was on Saturday, like, and it's a unique venue like that you can sit at a certain part of that field, I think, behind the town goal, and you're able to see everything, going on, and like, but look, let's not go down that road again. You're going to open up a can of worms here on me and get me in more trouble,
No,
John. But I still think we could do
lots
more,
more.
around match day, kind of, preparations for things, and you. Like the GA got a massive shot in the arm over the weekend with like the quality of the football. You've kids back, at matches, and now we're in the stage of where we're charging so much to families. It's like if I'm a Loud supporter, sure, of course I'm going to ask my dad, can we go? We're in Loud playing again. Where are we going? Where they like? I
Mm,
want to be on the road and going again. And like you're thinking, like families could get a series holiday out of it, a foreign holiday, if they're to go and support Louth now for the rest of it. Like, to me, Louth are going to win their 3 group games. I can't see anything to stop them winning their 3 group games, and then all of a sudden they're into an All Ireland quarter final proper, isn't it? And take it from there. Like, so you're talking about 4 more matches at least with Louth this year at what. What it's going to be a pop, like, per ticket. It is still asking a lot of families, I think, and we've asked it for years. I don't know when they're eventually going to listen and when it'll ever be done, but maybe that's what the FRC could look at next, and sorting out that kind of demand, the taking the expertise maybe and bring them outside onto the streets and say, right, what could we do to entertain these masses that they feel, okay, I spent 50 quid, 60 quid in the ticket, it's worth it.
I think, and to answer that question, Killian, there is a deal out. I think it's €50 for the 3 games.
Okay.
There is a group deal,
Okay.
so there is for the group game. So when
Okay, that's
yeah,
something.
that's a
That's why I didn't
start.
know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, listen, they'll have no problem shifting them and Louth. Do you think there'll be any problem getting to us? No, absolutely not. So that'll, as I said, look, that's something, because at least then it's rewarding people who are going to catch in all 3 games. So yeah, that's, look, we'll give them that, John. We'll give them that. You put me back in my box there.
Oh Lordy, Killian, Jesus Christ, absolutely. And then absolutely, that is that game on Saturday tied up. There's so much more we can talk about, but we don't have 4 or 5 more hours. So much talk points from that one, but and a remarkable day, and well done to Donegal. But that Armagh team will definitely be back, make no doubt about it. And then we'll move on to yesterday's action in the Leinster Senior Football Championship final. It was Meath against Louth. It was Meath 118, Louth 314. No extra time needed, no penalties needed, which I thought was going to be potentially a case, and no drama in Croke Park, unlike 2010, Killian. A very good game of football here. Louth, 68 years of pain and hurt, finally got over the line. As we were saying at the start of the podcast, Samuel Roy's speech was absolutely remarkable. Passion, emotion, such a variety of things going on. I think he nearly had the whole country in tears. Louth are Leinster champions for 2025.
Yeah, and delighted for someone like Andy McDonald, that was there in 2010, and that he was able to be back there and involved in that. And obviously, like Kieran Byrne and a few other guys like that, the truck so long, and Grimes. Mulroy's been a phenomenal player over the last number of years, and as I think I mentioned about Ryan Burns, that I remember seeing him as a young player, starting out at 17, 18 years of age, helping. I'll think of his club in a minute. But like he is, again, there's a few Louth players there that I think would be definitely at the minute. If you're picking an all-star team, they're in the running, or you're picking a starring team to take on whoever. They just, they've got this grit. I think a lot of I was listening to LMFM this morning, trying to catch up with a couple of my old mates up there, and the excitement I would imagine that's around, and especially radio station like that, and you're in the hub of both of them. It was important, but like they were saying there was a lot of credit being given to Mickey Hart, because he probably gave a number of these guys the belief, and so forth. But like I think that's fine. Having a marquee manager and the guy up at the front and able to drive it on. And I have to say, I had doubts about Ger Brendan. There's no question about that.
Oh, everyone did. Yeah.
And look, he's achieved it, and great credit to him. But I think it's all well and good sometimes that the senior intercounty manager gets the praise, but you've got to understand the amount of work that Louth have their house in order on the development side of things, that they're moving up along. And I would have seen it here. Unfortunately, I don't know why we threw out the template that we had in Laois, but we were successful in 03 at senior level because of the achievements of our minor teams in the late 90s. And like, those guys went on, and we got to see the great Beano MacDonald introduced into the Hall of Fame in Leinster yesterday. Beano was a old neighbour of mine, and I, as I said, witnessed his ability from 10, 11 years of age. But like, Laois had a template, John, and then they just decided, sure, we were so successful, let's just throw it away. And now we're probably starting to realise we've got to get back to something like that,
Oh, but Jesus, Killian, you're after giving me goosebumps there. I used to watch the GA DVDs till all hours when I was a young lad. Still am a young lad, but I'm younger than I am now. And I'd be watching till just I don't know whatever time in the morning. And the great Laois team of '05 there, when you had Ross Mundy, you'd Beano McDonald, you had who was the other guy? He was good, really good corner forward, black hair, brown hair. Judge, no, that's going to annoy me now. He was a great man. Forget the inside forward for Laois. I
Well, you
can't
would have had
think.
Delaney and Fitzpatrick, and you
Oh,
would have. Let me see who else would have been. God,
Ross.
you're really sticking it to me now as well to try and remember some of those lads. Uh,
Oh,
and you
Ross.
go back, you like, but there would have been, like I said, those
Colin
crew.
Judge.
Chris Conway would have been another guy that,
Chris
yeah,
Conway, he was a hell of
you
a
know,
footballer. But just
yeah,
watching the flair of the lads, like my God, when they were playing against Dublin in some of them games in Leinster, like it was
absolutely.
just so good to watch.
Michael John Tierney, it might be another one
MJ
that you're thinking
Tierney,
about. Yeah, like some of those guys, the ability and Leash were
Bino
theirs
was
at oh
class.
03, oh
Bino
04, oh
was
05. Ah, yeah, Bino was serious. He just that leg injury. He never unfortunately came back from it. And that while as I said, he did play on a little bit after it ultimately it just. It definitely impacted on his ability then to go and do the things that he used to do. But yeah, like I don't take from Loud, but Loud have obviously, gone away and decided, I don't know, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is, put their house in order in that kind of regard that players are brought along, streamlined along, and they have particular types of football. But Loud were never a bad team. Like as a county, always competing, John. Like they had clubs in Leinster club finals. They while they might never have won one, they were always knocking on the door. They were always a team that could upset, a particular. Let's say a Dublin on a day, a Meath on their day, when maybe they were probably stages above them. I always remember a cracking game when there was a lot of expected to Kildare in 2010 in Navan, and Louth doing a number on them. And I know Kildare went back through the back door and changed things around, and obviously made it to an All Ireland semi final that year. And Louth, we know what happened in the Leinster final against Meath, and like but they've always, as I said, like they're a
been
proud county,
thereabouts.
and they're thereabouts, and it's actually amazing that it's taken them 68 years to win a Leinster title. When you consider, as I said, I know they've gone down to Division 4 on occasion and stuff like that, but to me, they were always, and maybe I remember battles, John. You won't remember this, but the early '90s, Laois and Louth had some incredible battles. And I mean, go back and look at an old YouTube video of a row in Crow Park between Laois and Louth, and how long that went on. That fight or that little rumpus in Clonus at the weekend. Nothing on this one.
Paddy O'Shea, Diddy Allen wouldn't have a scratch in that.
Oh, jeez, absolutely not. Yeah, 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 yeah. But like. Listen. I probably because I did a bit of work in Louth and Meath for a few years there before COVID. I got to know some of the setup and some of the people that are involved up there, and great credit to them. Like it just. It looks eventually like they're going to have a permanent home. They're going to get that building done and sorted, and that'll be great for them because I know it's been a big shot in the arm and for Kildare here and having Newbridge back as their home base, and it's now a modern venue and whatever. I think that's the only thing that's Louth don't have. They were probably one of the first counties to have a training facility, out in Darver, and it made a lot of other counties jealous. Now it's it's in a very rural location, but still it's a key point at that part of the world, and it obviously has started the let's say the journey of a lot of their teams. So look, hats off to Louth. As I said, I'm surprised it took so long, but Jesus, can you imagine being allowed today, John? Like it must be just you're going around with a pep in your step, man. It's just unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. What was that? Someone up in Dundalk or with the diesel or what was that? Someone said to me.
I'm not going to mention it. I'm not getting in trouble. I'm not getting in trouble.
I was thinking of it last night, and I just said no. I'll go with the cows won't be milked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well done to Loud, though. It was a serious performance, and again, very much like Saturday Killian, it went down to the wire. Mead, it was heartbreak for Mead, but I think me took a while to get going in this game. I think nerves were playing a bit of a part. I know we were kind of having a bit of back forth the group chat about Mead's maybe start, and it did take them a bit of time. They did get going. We see the introduction of Jordan Morrison that brought a huge difference. But I think the Loud goals, and me and you were kind of having a bit of a back and forth about this. I think for me to let them in so easy, I think was a bit of a problem. The space opened up in front of the Loud lads at inter-county level, Killian. That just simply can't be happening.
Yeah, well, John, there was a great commentator down Kildare direction. He's long since left it. I'm sure he's commentating above in the pearly gates this evening or something like that. But he used to come up with a few cliches. But the one that I always say, and it's a well used one in the GA: goals win games. And if you're winning three games, three goals, you're scoring three goals, you would fully expect to win the game. And Louth must have been thinking, God, what do we have to do to put this Mead team away? Because Mead, as I said, we're kicking the points, and Louth didn't seem like getting into the second half there. It went out to about 4 points, I think it was. But then maybe Mead's race was run a little bit, John. Like I just think they took a while to get going. When they did, then even when they, let's say, for example, threatened to open a gap, Loud Loud sprung something on them, and the goals were, and like if you look back at definitely two of them, they won't be overly impressed with how the channel, the left hand side was raided on a couple of things. And you're talking about Loud being just quick, sharp passing, and all of a sudden got in and a shot off. And like what a credit I have to say the Loud forwards and of course Lennon, you could really paint him as a forward. His goal tally now is significant for a man that's marauding from wing back, but um you'd have to say they never thought about tapping them over the bar, John. They were going for the jugglers. This was a kind of a way to let Mead know, hey boys, like we're willing to take you on here toe to toe. We ain't the version that you met in 2010, and that we might not have let's say trusted ourselves enough to go for it so much, like and you're not going to take this from us in any way. They were going to try and dictate it, but Mead still kept them, I suppose, a little bit at arm's length. And even as I said, when they went in at half time and there was, what was it, 13 points to 3-3, I think it was, like you were still thinking Louth are going to kick, but it was me that came out and started well and opened up the gap. But Louth, eventually it was really like, the guy out in the river, John, and he's just throwing out the bait every so often and the little bit of wire, and it's waiting for the hook, and eventually then just pull, snap,
Mm.
bang. And like, there was certain guys stepped up. I thought, like we a lot about Mulroy, but Downey, yeah, give Grimes a little bit of a mention here, and obviously
Mm.
Lennon as well. They were guys that just had a big part, obviously, to play in it. But again, John, maybe something that they've worked on, maybe their belief of their performances of the last number of years, maybe the formation as a team. Although obviously they've had new guys introduced this year in comparison to maybe what they had under Mickey Hart and whatever. But what impressed me was their game management, John. They were in
Yeah.
Crow Park, Leinster final, and they dictated the last 7 minutes of play. It was phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, no, it was just it was a great game, and I think fully expected how good it was going to be. And I think Robbie Brennan, like giving out after, but some of the refereeing decisions, and I know it's easy to say that after a game, but I think he will be quite disappointed. And a lot of the comments today, of course, you're going to get me beat Dublin, and then they go on and lose the final, and that no doubt will be the chat around podcasts and bloody the bar stools and everywhere around lunch tables, so on and so forth. But it was probably unfortunate for me not to finish the job. And I know this was a very, very spirited, loud performance, but Mead will be disappointed this week.
Yeah, well, like after beating Dublin, you probably are turning up and you're expecting to, um, I wouldn't say you're expecting to obviously win it or anything like that. I'm sure they weren't taking anything for granted with Louth. I fully expected Louth to win it, John.
Okay.
You know, okay, I saw a bit out of Mead, but I just felt that Louth are a little bit further down the road than them, and I think that's a factor. And I,
Mm,
I think Mead, if Robbie Brennan can be kept in train and they back him and the players, stick around and whatever, they're not that far away. But I just thought that Louth, I think, played a little bit in within themselves against Kildare, but they got the job done. They got over the line. Now they stumbled over the line, but they got over the line, and like. I would have thought then a factor is as well, and I might come back to this, John, in a minute. When Louth saw the group stages for the All Ireland series, that had to be a factor also. That you're looking at, guys. Do we want to be in this group where we're heading to Kerry, or do we want to be in a group that potentially we're looking at quarterfinals? Say, and like I'm sure that had to be thrown out there by Ger Brennan that the draw has been favourable enough if we come out here as Leinster winners. So I just thought they're a little bit further down the line.
yeah.
Even though they have newer players in, they still have obviously guys that are in key positions that have been there and done that. Your Andy McDonald and your Durnan in the middle of the field. You have obviously Ryan Byrne, Samuel Roy, you have Grimes, Bevan Duffy, Lennon. They're guys that have, as I said, been there and done that with Louth and
Mm,
have seen the dark days of Louth and the good days. So that meant I just felt they were a little bit ahead. How much ahead? I always thought it was going to be tight. I thought it might have been the win might have been a little bit bigger. I didn't think it was going to take as long maybe for Louth to exert their pressure, but great credit to them. Look, there's no question of
mm,
it. Will Mead be disappointed? Yeah, that was your original question. I would say yes, but I'm not. As I said, I don't think they're as far down the line as maybe this Louth who are.
mm. Yeah, yeah, and I think Robbie Brennan, that is a project with me. I think he will be there for at least three. I think Robbie Brennan will be there for a while, and I think he still will do good things to that me team, and he has done fantastic work. And I think in All Ireland series, like let's see what happens for them in that particular series. But it still was a very good meet performance. But yeah, like they will be disappointed, but Loud, going back to Loud, remarkable stuff. And Sam Roy saying after the game, it's let's not talk about 2010, let's focus on the now, let's talk about the present. And Killian, as you said a couple of minutes ago, they're doing everything right. They've their minor sewn up, they've the 20 sewn up, they've the senior sewn up, and people saying with Ricky Hart probably started all this. And in fairness, they're probably not far wrong. Like it as I've heard before, you need to build a house from the bottom up, and that's what Louth are doing. And other counties could really take a leaf out of their book.
Yeah, like I probably don't want to come across as being against the impact that obviously Mickey Hart can have. I've seen it a bit in Offaly there and whatever, but I don't think, as I said, you give. I'm not sure. I'm a coach and I'm standing with a development squad, or I'm with them, a selector with the minor team, and I'm giving of it all there. And I've been a couple of years, and I've seen these guys develop as footballers. I think at the end of the day, you can have your marquee manager that might ultimately give these guys a sense that they deserve to be there and to take every opportunity and take every chance. But I think we got to give credit to those who are down at the front line of it. Like at the end of the day, you've given, within the clubs and everything like that, you've given these guys the source and the talent and the skills and whatever. And yeah, while I saw it with Laois, we had talented footballers. Were we getting over the line? No. Mick O'Dwyer arrives, and all of a sudden, that belief goes. Jesus, lads are going. Hold on, Mick O'Dwyer's come to Laois. We have to give it all, and that's probably what he got out of him. And I suppose Mick will always maintain after that, Lord of mercy in his soul, but always maintained that he probably didn't listen to the players too much in the second and third year, and he reckoned that was the death knell of Laois. That everywhere he went after that, the players listened to him, and he was able to, yeah, and he kept that iron fist that if I need to change it, I'll change it. You won't be telling me how to change it, and so Mickey Hart, there's no question, obviously has that impact, but I still think these guys, a lot of plaudits have to go to those that were developing them in their club and in their counties, and they should be proud of what they saw some of their players do yesterday. And you know what? They could be a tricky proposition going forward. Do I see them winning an All Ireland? No, but they won't be far away.
Obviously, after the game, Ger Brennan saying it's good as winning an All Ireland with Dublin back in the day, like this celebrations and scenes after the game. And it really did mean a whole lot to him. And obviously, with James McCartan in the back room there, and obviously Niall Moyna, like that's a star. So, okay, we talk about backroom teams, and I have a bit of a gripe with 6 or 7 lads standing along the sideline. I don't know about you, Killian, and add value so on and so forth, but you can bet your bottom dollar, Niall Moyna. He's one of the best in the business, and James McCartan, we need to say more.
Yeah, like, at the end of the day, James McCartan got an unknown down team to an All Ireland final, in 2010, and achieved a lot with them as well, over years, and in a couple of different stages with them. Like he can't, his ability and his knowledge can't be taken for granted, so that's a factor. And like if Ger Brennan is the captain of the ship, he has good people in behind him, and that's maybe what has been Ger's, I suppose, best kind of trait, is that he got people in key roles and key positions, and he put faith and trust in them, and let them at it, like, so that's, I think that's part of the battle. You get the foundations right, whatever, within the setup within the county, but like if you're the senior management, you have guys there that have been there and won it all. Like, you know Kieran McGuinness goes after Kieran Donaghy. Why? Because like he had been a fly in the ointment of Armagh over the years, but he knew how to win and he knew that fire was in the belly. He goes outside the county to get some of these guys, McKeever, but he's also gone further, into Derry and other counties as well to get guys to come and join the setup and just looking for that little bit. And if it's only that 1% that they're John able to come up with, that gets him over the line in an All Ireland final, which sure wasn't it worth it then. Now I do agree with you, not a big believer in it, but when you look at the fact, John, and from my small little bit of knowledge and from friends that are involved with intercounty setups, like there's no longer, I don't think, and this is the problem with some of the traits in the GA, that maybe there's guys in administrators. And I have a gripe over administrators this week anyway that we might talk about some other time. But like administrators look at what's this guy here for? What's he doing? Oh, he's only here for the free tracksuit and the top and all this kind of stuff, whatever. But like you're looking at statistics now and so forth. Like there's so many guys now, iPads, they're able to say, watching the GPS system and everything like that. Now I know
Uh,
you don't agree with it, but
like
that's the way the game. That's the way the game has gone.
Oh no, without a shadow of a doubt, without a doubt, and I understand it, and it takes everyone. And I'm looking at the Armagh backroom team; it's impressive. I'm looking at the Donegal. You need every man these days, but I just think, and I see like maybe at club level, it probably annoys me more, Killian, with 4 or 5 lads, maybe 6 lads standing around, and as Kevin Kennedy, or my old trusted colleague said, you could you're just watching the one game. How can everyone have a different? Like you kind of just like this crack of maybe 5 or 6, even at club level, is a bit much, Killing.
Maybe so, maybe
I
so,
don't
but
know. It's
but like
hard
if
to.
you listen, if you've a county or club,
Yeah,
John, that can afford it, and now I do think there's a little bit of hoodwinking goes on, because I'm sure within the club setup, as we know, there's this lovely managerial roundabout or merry-go-round that goes
have
around,
you
and
got on it yet?
you're
Have you
here,
got?
no,
Have you?
geez, no, I wouldn't, but. I might have been in behind the guy that was on it. All right, on occasion, I might have been tapped into for a little bit of knowledge, but like the problem sometimes I find that clubs might go after, a high profile guy that's maybe done it somewhere or he's shown some element of ability, and then he comes in and he sits down with the club, and the club, he turns around and he says to the club who have potential to win the senior championship or maybe thereabouts, and he says, right, I want 60,000 or I want 50,000. And what's that money for? Well, I guarantee you we'll do this, but I need a nutritionist and I need a physio all the time and I need this, and I'm going to bring me friend as well who's a good coach, and I have a goalkeeping coach, and I like the clubs seriously have to have a look at themselves. Like if they're handing over money like that just because it's a high profile, I don't agree with it. At intercounty, I do think there needs to be a little bit of a sharpening up of it, and maybe at the end of the day, if you've won an All Ireland, you're Kieran McGuinness and you're going to the Armagh County Board. I would say he's been able to get most of the things that he's wanted
Without a doubt.
in recent times.
But it, but even like not to harp on about it, but like even Donegal's background team, and it's probably not talked about. They have a ferocious, and no doubt they're adding value, and well done. They're Anglo Cell Cup winners, make no doubt about it. But they have a ferocious backroom team, and like look, if you're adding value, 100%. Like look at the Limerick curlers, so on and so forth.
Well, that's the thing. But what's the added value, as you said? So maybe there has to be job descriptions and whatever put into it. Like I can understand, there is merit in an S&C coach, there's a merit in a nutritionist. I good friend of mine is a psychologist. She works with a couple of intercounty teams. I can see the merit in that. When you look at Caroline Currid, let's say for one example,
Mm,
how impressive that she's been. Like, does she merit being in there? Every county will say that she has been the difference in unlocking them and winning All Irelands, be it in
yeah.
Dublin and Limerick and anywhere that she has been. But my thing would be is that I do think that GPS and that kind of system is necessary at intercounty level because of the way the game has gone, John, and especially this year. I think we're going to see. I'd love to see a GPS study this year, maybe to last year, the year before, as regards mileage covered now, because the new rule and everything, that's going to be an interesting kind of take on it. But yeah, job description, but I would be concerned if someone's going down to Waterford or Carlow or whatever, and they say we're going to win the All Ireland. Like what's Waterford's, what's Carlow's achievement? Maybe make a Leinster semi final. but I want 60,000 because I'm going to bring in this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Now the players, they'll turn around and tell you that players are playing for the DCUs and the UCDs and the Ulster University and whatever this world, and they're encompassing that in college. So they want to see it at intercounty level. If they want to commit, they want to see a serious manager and they want to see a serious backroom team. I don't know. Maybe some players are brainwashed by it in lots of ways. But I can see merit, John. I know you might not necessarily agree. I can see merit in S&C, nutritionists,
Yes, yes,
psychologists, and I
yes.
think your GPS. And
Mm.
I do think you need two selectors. After that, then I don't know how
Go,
many more you need on match day. You'll have your
go.
goalkeeping coach and maybe kick out strategy and everything like that. But just give you one story. When Tipperary won when Tipperary made it to the All Ireland semi-final, footballers All Ireland semi-final that they did in 2016, there was a number of guys double jobbing. It can be done with, as I said, that there was selectors doing other roles within, so their focus was, and Liam Kearns kept a fairly tight crew, and that worked to their advantage. So I
Yeah,
think we can be. Oh,
we can
Jesus,
tie.
like Donegal arrive with a minibus with 18 backroom team get off it, or Dublin or whatever. Like, you're going, like, I don't know. This, and you're maybe, as I said, your Offaly's or your Limerick or whatever, and you're turning around going, geez, yeah, we probably, if we're going to win All Ireland, we need that.
Yeah, like it's like they're doing it, so we need to do it. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just find a club level, and like obviously if you're at many club games, Killian, but like I just think this crack of 4 or 5 lads standing around and talking into each other's ears. I just think if I was like, I don't know, it just fucking annoys me. I just what the point of it is, I don't know. You
Well,
know?
I know of an intercounty manager that would not wear the earpiece. So
Okay.
he had a guy in the stand talking to the guy beside him, but sure, to me that made no sense at all because what did he say? I'm sure like your man beside him could tell him anything. Like what was the point?
Chinese
What was the point of that then? And then the
Chinese
manager,
whispers.
oh yeah,
Chinese.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. The manager then is turning around and tell him this, and sure he could be saying anything back. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's look,
Yeah.
I think we're taking away. I want to get back to Louth here a little bit, John. I don't want to take away from their achievements.
Yeah.
Like I think less is more. It's a great line that Joe Schmidt told me one time.
With
Less is more.
without a
You know,
doubt. Yeah.
you just if you have key personnel and they're doing the right job, like Ger Brennan, I think had a picture with his backroom team. I think I counted 10. You know,
Exactly, a hundred
so
and 10%. And last thing on it, sorry to go on about this, but Niall Moyna and James McCartan, no doubt, are 110% added value because they've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt.
yeah, and like I think the players are going to respond to them, and
It's 100
and
100%.
then they seem to have key personnel who know their role. I wouldn't know the rest of them. I know one guy, David White, that played with Moorfield in Kildare. David is obviously involved with Jerry. He was involved with him in the backroom team with Moorfield when Jerry Brennan was over Moorfield here in Kildare. So like. But David obviously is an added value. He's been a manager. He's only a young guy, I suppose, in the scheme of things on the intercounty setup. But he's obviously getting a lot of experience. It's going to stand to him and it'll look good in his CV. I presume he was in a kind of Mayor Ferna position yesterday or something like that, or runner or whatever. But like, they, it's like at the end of the day, John, if Ger Brendan has gone back to the Louth County Board, they've won the Leinster title for the first time in 68 years.
Mm,
Like, I think if he told them, like, lads, I need you to bring in Ronaldo there from Saudi Arabia, they probably would go with it.
mm. Oh
So,
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
that's the other thing. If you want the success and you've
Get
seen the Dublins do it and the Kerrys do it in the past or whatever, what about it? Like, you're going to try and get these people, and as I said, they can. And the advantage for some of these guys is they can go in and name their figure, and if you want the success,
yeah.
are you willing to pay it? That's the thing. I don't understand at club level. I'm
A
with you on
club
that one.
level, club
With you
level,
on that one.
county not as much. And I know Cavan got a bad out slagging about the backroom team. Ray Gallagher announced a couple of years ago, and it hasn't gone to plan really since. But at club level, I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So but
yeah.
look, that's really it. Anyway,
That's our gripe.
congratulations to Loud. An incredible win. Hard luck to me. You will be back, make no doubt about it. And I would love to see what is going on in RD right now. And Dundalk, Killian.
Maybe not actually. Some of those pictures could be dodged there, John. Uh, You wouldn't mind being there, but I don't want any pictures taken.
Oh, Lord above. My God, my God. Moving swiftly on to the Total Cup action in round one over the weekend on Saturday. The Total Cup is back, and it's great to see. You had Wexford against Longford. It was Wexford 224, Longford 118 in Chadwick's Wexford Park after full time. Great win. For Wexford, and then you had Kildare against Leitrim in St. Connick's Park, and it was Kildare 36 points, Leitrim 11 points, a 25-point win for Kildare, Killian. And oh, Goddy, Stevie Poacher has a lot of homework to do this week.
Yeah, enough said about Stevie Poacher. We wouldn't go down well in my county anyway. Over comments that were made previously, and I don't think anyone in Kildare would have warmed to him too much either. But look, I still have a gripe that Leitrim, that whole thing of the game and the league and so forth. And I again would know some good Leitrim people, and I think they're still embarrassed by that situation. But hey, that was it. Look, Kildare would have enough talent to win that. Kildare have enough talent to win the Tailteann Cup. There's no question about it. Whether they have it in between the 2 years now is going to be the big thing, John. Like, Alex Byrne had a phenomenal performance. I think if I just want to check my notes here, 12 points he kicked. Good to see Jimmy Hyland back. We haven't seen a whole lot of Jimmy Hyland in recent years for Kildare. Has battled with injury for a long time, and he got back into the field of play. So like, I think Kildare, maybe if they're to win the Tailteann Cup, will need more than Alex Byrne, though. They're going to need, like, Dara Swords kick 6 points, but will he do it against Westmeath, or will he do it against, some of the counties that will be challenging for this Tailteann Cup? That's going to be the factor. I think Byrne will. I think Byrne is an standout intercounty footballer. Will we see Ben McCormack back? We probably will once he gets over, I suppose, whatever went on between himself and Brian Flanagan at the Leinster semi-final. I'd say he was chastised a little bit by the looks of it. Your man was back. Dan Flynn was back on
Oh,
the
great
field
to
of play,
see. Great to see.
So I'm sure maybe Dan will have a part to play
He must have
too.
heard me. He must
He
have heard
must have,
me.
yeah, yeah. Brian Flanagan is listening right now. But like they they marked themselves as one of the favourites. But look, um, Kildare did this last year. They went out and obliterated the three opponents in the group stages, and then lost to Laois and Tullamore and just give up the ghost. This is going to be the thing for Kildare. I don't think on Brian Flanagan they will give up the ghost, but there's still the old problem, of maybe taking on nonsensical chances, kicking a lot of wides. Not a whole lot of goal opportunities, but like, as you might turn, so why do you need goals when you kick 36 points? Maybe that's it, but you're not going to get 36 points against,
No.
maybe, look, they'll have Sligo and Tipperary. Sligo and Tipperary, 215, 210. That game turned out yesterday, John. I expected more of Sligo. Tipperary are a kind of a new team. Like, they've lost a lot of their crew that would have been around there that led them to All Ireland scenarios back in the late teens there. But so they're changing over, and I would have thought would have got more out of Sligo when you consider what the performance they put up against Mayo in the Connacht Championship. But like, Sligo and Kildare will probably ultimately decide that group in some ways. But I have to give a shout out to my mother's home county of Carlow. That was a phenomenal
Yeah.
performance. When you consider where
Yeah.
Carlow were and everything that went on with Shane Kern, like, to take on it, go up to Fermanagh, Brewster Park on any given
Mm.
day. If you were asking any team to go
Oh,
into
we
Brewster
we got it
Park
tight down there.
to play in Fermanagh, absolutely, and Carlow go in and beat them. So great credit to Joe Murphy in the last 6 weeks. He's and the same group of lads that Shane Kern, I have to say, wrongly vilified in the media. Turn out and give that performance. That's great credit to them. And to me, that's the standout result of the weekend there. But so this Tailteann Cup could be interesting going, as I said, going forward. Westmeath won't be far away, I think. Carlow could be in the reckoning yet, depending on how the rest of that group goes. Offaly obviously will be one of the favourites. My own County Laois had a good win, but not spectacular against Waterford. And of course, Wexford got the show back on the road after the disappointment of the league final in Croke Park. So, yeah, I still think Westmeath and Offaly are
Kildare.
going to have a big say in that Tailteann Cup.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, like you said, Kildare, like if Kildare get to the final, Killian, like, and we know what they're like inside of Croke Park at times. Will Kildare, if they get to the final, will they find a way to lose the final? Like, it's all well and good getting there, but you just, I don't, you know yourself with them.
Listen, I'd love to see them win it. I'm aware of the talent that's there, and I'm aware of the manager who's was a very talented footballer and a lieutenant of McGuinness when he was in Kildare. But for whatever reason, over the last while, it just Kildare haven't been able to get big matches over the line. And as I said, prime example, win the group stages last year, and then when a bit of a challenge came on in Tullamore, just absolutely capitulated last year. Now, this is a new team. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a lot of individuals that, as I said, have been thereabouts, right? You have a new goalkeeper. I think one of the best fullbacks in the game, and maybe it's because I coached him as a young lad through secondary school. Mark Dempsey would have stood out on Sigerson Cup teams when he played with can't remember if it was DCU or UCD, but he played with UL as well. Also, a guy that just stood out. They have a very talented crew. David Hyland, been there, done that. James McGrath, probably one of the best young footballers in the county. If Kevin Feely, I think, would be on most panels in the country. There's no question about that. Alex Byrne has become that marquee player for Kildare, but he needs backup. I would be concerned about, let's say, one or two footballers that, for me, from Kildare point of view, and the talent that they haven't kicked on. But you've also got Brian Flanagan, who's first year of a project. I would say, he's looking at next year and maybe even the year after is maybe the progression. He needs to keep them in Division 2. So the mid got out of Division 3. He needs to keep them in Division 2. That puts them then in the situation where they're challenging into the All-Ireland series. But I don't think Kildare people, and I've said this before, they can't be turning up their nose at the Tailteann Cup.
No.
Like a chance to win it would be absolutely massive. And I think he will do everything to win it. My concern would be is if they're playing Westmeath, now I know they've beaten them in the Leinster Championship, so maybe they've won up in Westmeath, but they can't beat Offaly, and they've always struggled to beat Offaly. So if you were asking me in the morning, John, Tailteann Cup, Kildare and Offaly, I think it's Offaly's all day by at least 4 or 5 points. That's
Right.
that would be it. And that's not knocking Kildare. And I'd say a lot of Kildare people, if they were watching us here, I'm sure they've turned off by now. But if they were, they'd have to agree with me. But they're still probably looking for what's the future. So, Jimmy Hyland's still a young man. There's no, won an All Ireland under 20 was he the player of the tournament that year when they beat Mayo in Croke Park. Like he's a phenomenal talent, and we probably at senior level haven't seen enough of him because he suffered, as I said, a couple of knee injuries over the last couple of years. But Kildare have, as I said, the potential. They've been there at minor level, at under 20. It just, whatever seems to happen, get to senior, it just doesn't translate. And when you look at Louth, they are what the template that Kildare, like, there's no question about it, John. There's work being done in Kildare. As I said, they were the one county in probably the last 10 years that took it to Dublin, at underage, but they never seem to be able to do it at intercounty. I've been there watching matches in Croke Park up against Dublin, and since McGuinness left, I can't really remember a Kildare team. Maybe, as I said, Keane O'Neill had a couple of, as I said, performances, especially the Newbridge or Nowhere one against Mayo and but other than that, I haven't seen enough performances where you could credibly say this Kildare team is going to win a piece of silverware this year. Like, people were getting carried away in the league this year. They won the first 4 matches, and that was fine. Get to the league final, what happens? They lose in Croke Park.
That's what I'm saying.
Kildare need to win a game in Croke Park. That's why I think it's important that they got to league final, but they need to win a game.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was the Division 4 or the Mickey Mouse Cup or whatever. They need to win a game in Croke Park. And my problem for them now is the next time they're in Croke Park, this year, Tailteann Cup final.
Yeah.
That's going to be, like, if they were to win that game, it could be massive for this panel and this manager going into next year. If they were to win the Tailteann Cup in Croke Park, psychologically, you've hit the jackpot if you come away with that,
It'd be serious. No, they should just dip into the transfer market and maybe get a wee.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's his name again? I think he used to play for Cavan, did he? Is he still around, is he? Might he do a job?
Who knows? Oh, don't mention the war. I had to
don't
say
mention
it,
the war.
I was waiting and waiting. I was waiting.
You set it up there and I just came in. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. And then you had Laois against Waterford. It was Laois 28 points, Waterford 116 in Laois Higher Moor Park. Any brief thoughts on that one, Ken?
Look, Laois under Justin McNulty are heading in good direction, but we're still probably, we're missing the ability of Evan O'Carroll. Like again, Evan O'Carroll, don't get me wrong, I think would be on most county panels in the
He
country.
ripped Cavan apart in
You know,
Tailteann 2 years ago.
yeah,
Ripped us apart.
so like he's one. But look, Laois have footballers coming through there. There's lots of lads, younger lads getting experience. With Killian Roach, I think is one of the best goalkeepers in the country. Phenomenal, acquisition that we got him up from Clare. He walked into my own club, of course, in at home in Laois, and we're glad to have him as well. But a Clare man now, he's well adopted and in Laois, and like he's a fine exponent of long kicking. Got 4 points in that game against Waterford. But Laois again, probably a crew in transition. Lots of guys getting game time, but Justin McNulty into like if he wasn't to achieve something this year, what's the achievement? Well, the achievement is getting out of getting up last year from Division 4, holding it into Division 3. Well, I think the achievement over Laois next year is you have to try and get out of Division 3. So to see progress in some way, and because the Tailteann Cup is going to be hard won, I don't see Laois winning the Tailteann Cup, but they've been thereabouts the last couple of years. It was the opposition that they come up against. But if it was Laois against Offaly and Croke Park, I think it'd be tighter maybe than Offaly and Kildare. But I still think Offaly hold some of the aces there. So I still think they'll have a say in where it goes, but they'll have to do better than allowing Waterford get within 10 points of them or whatever. So look, 28 points is good kicking. As I said, Mark Barry, one of the fine player, but he went off at half time. You've Corbett still around there. Killian Heffernan from my own club as well. Better give him a mention. Fine footballer, young footballer, playing Sigerson has stood out at college's level. He's producing quite good football. So, to answer your question, Laois, what do I think? Will be in the mix. I don't think they'll win it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the other results in the Tailteann Cup over the weekend, it was Offaly against Wicklow. It was Offaly 2-13, Wicklow 11 points in Glenisco Connor Park. And then you had Limerick against London. It was Limerick 25 points, London 115 in Rathkeale. So obviously a very good win for Limerick there at home. And then on Sunday in the Tailteann Cup action, you had Westmeath against Antrim. It was Westmeath 4-24. Antrim 116 in TG. Cusick Park, Killian Whelan, Dermot McCabe has got his first win as Westmeath manager.
Yeah. And let's give a shout to Luke Loughlin. He scored the amount I think that Antrim scored. I think if I'm right on my notes, he is just 117. He is just a phenomenal talent. Always has been anyway, Luke. But that's absolutely crazy. Let me see what if I can get a breakdown of his scores. 1-7 and 5 arcs he kicked.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. Great talent, and no question, and has been through his own battles and stuff like that. But God Almighty, when he shines, it's something
great
to
watch.
behold. Great watch. They're smarting enough from that defeat against Kildare in St. Conleth's Park back in the championship, so probably glad to get the show back on the road. And I have to say, against an Antrim team that always would be sticky, that's a good result. So they will be, will they fancy themselves? I think they will. Westmeath, Limerick, London, Antrim is Group 3. I fancy Westmeath to come out of that group. It'll be between themselves and Limerick, but Westmeath should come out there. Looks like now it's going to be Wexford and Carlow are going to decide that Group 4. Laois and Offaly will probably decide Group 2, and then it's Kildare and Sligo probably are going to decide. And Kildare, I'd fancy, will come out on top in that group there. So, those groups could be getting tight at the top. The second game now coming up, John, that will ultimately point us in the direction, because at the minute we have, 2 points, the two teams at the top of 2 points, and then there's 0 points. So this next game now will ultimately give us an idea of where we think the Tailteann Cup might rest and how the closing stage are going to play. But that's a fairly good result from Westmeath point of view, bouncing back from the Leinster Championship scenario. Carlow, result of the weekend. Sligo might be disappointed that they kept that close to Tipperary. I suppose Limerick, yeah, got the job done. Offaly got the job done against, a Wicklow team that, under Rushy McConville had a late resurgence in the league. So, but you would be expecting a team that's obviously the Division 3 champions to beat a team that was in Division 4. And keep an eye on Wexford. I think Wexford won't be far either out of it, John. Smarting from that league final defeat. John Hegarty, a former workmate of mine, has a good thing going there, good philosophy, good, and they all, he has a crew that buy into it. Again, a good bounce back from them, into the Tailteann Cup. So it could, next round now will tell us a lot, and we can talk a little bit more about it in the weeks to come.
Yeah, absolutely, Killian. Absolutely. I suppose briefly moving on to this weekend's action on Saturday the 17th of May in the All Ireland Senior Football Championship, round one. We're getting into the All Ireland series. It's quick, it's fast, and this is what we have to get used to, Killian. It's Galway against Dublin in Pearse Stadium at 5 p.m. And of course, the game will be live on GAA Plus.
Yeah. GA Plus, I think I have that one, and you have Kerry and Roscommon as well. Galway in home ground, Pearse Stadium. If the Dublin team that turned up in Portlaoise turn up in Pearse Stadium, Galway win this by 6 points minimum, I think. That'll give us an idea of where Dublin are at, how far maybe they've fallen, John. I think if we get something out of that game. But Galway are in a situation as well that maybe they're to be targeted at. Like, maybe, if you're Desi Farrell, what better game do you want to maybe test your guys and say, right, lads, come on, show me what you got. You handed your backsides to you in Portlaoise. Let's have a bounce back, and no better place to do it maybe than go down and take on and beat Galway down in their home ground. It looks like it's going to be a gorgeous evening Saturday. So unless there's a massive breeze comes in off the sea down there in Salt Hill, it could be a white bed of action. But I'd fancy Galway to win that, I think. And despite my Roscommon connections, I can't see them going down to Fitzgerald Stadium and getting a result. I have to say that quite, my wife might be listening, but like I just can't see it. I can't see it.
No, definitely not. And then the other games, oh lordy, over the weekend, Killian, do we really have to go this far? It's my own County Cavan against Mayo in McHale Park at 2:30 on Sunday, Killian. It's a while since these lads have played, Killian, and
but sure, that could be the best thing ever.
Yeah, true. Or the worst thing, who knows?
Well, they've had 6 weeks, I presume, now, since, isn't it nearly 6 weeks?
Nearly 6 weeks. And you're talking injuries to Garo Baccarin, and you're talking injuries to James Smith and Paddy Lynch. By all accounts, played 20 minutes against Fermanagh in a challenge match last week. So I hope he's nearing a return. But, it's going to be a long day at the office, I think.
Right, that's interesting. Now, you would know more than me. But like, we have a Mayo team. Look, I was left with egg in my face, I suppose, a little bit, and it could have been a Mayo victory in the Connacht final very easily. They definitely belied what they had done against Sligo and Leitrim to really take it to Galway that day. And obviously, a lot of people said, they targeted that game. The thing would be now is ultimately how, I suppose, they bounce from those defeats, but you would expect it, like, if Mayo are to have any kind of situation, I don't think Mayo are going to win All Ireland, but if they're going to be in the mix to upset somebody, they have to be beating Cavan, and you would fully expect them to be able to do that at home. The league difference between them and everything like that should be enough there. But yeah, I hope you don't mind, John, but I'd be fair surprised if Cavan get within 5 or 6 points at Mayo.
I think 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to be kind to you, but there you
go, You're probably doubling it up. And then you've Clare against Down in Cusack Park at 2 p.m. Home advantage for Clare could be huge in this one.
Yeah. It could be. But I remember a few years ago, I think Clare went up to Park Esther and actually got a very good result, a great result against them. So I like Clare's style of football. Peter Keane is something going there. They're just probably, they're unfortunate. I think they're running the league because I think they're a Division 2 team. I don't think Division 3 is where they're at. But that, yeah, look, the rest of the championship, whether they want to be the whipping boys in that group or whatever, will define it. I think Clare at home, that'll be vital. Get a bit of a crowd in and support them. I think they'll have enough there to beat Down. Down
Only
would
one.
need to be in a situation, John, where they're not over reliant on one man in the forwards. That's going to be the factor. I think Clare have a better spread of footballer. I think they've a probably, if you were to put it on the paper, I think Clare just have the better footballing team. So I think it's Clare's to take there.
Yeah, especially at home as well. I think Owen Cleary will have an enjoyable day at the office on Sunday, make no doubt about it. And then briefly in the Total Cup round two action on Saturday, you've Wicklow against Laois in Auckram at 6 p.m. Who'll get up?
Oh, brings back memories. Oh,
Who'll get the
oh, I
job?
tell you.
Who'll get the job done?
Oh God, if lads in Louth didn't want to be reminded of 2010, 1986, gorgeous sunny day in Auckram, and referees
Oh
were locked in the booths of cars and everything, and Wicklow knocked Laois, the famous Laois team that had won a National League title, out of the championship, and we were had to wait until 1987 when Carlo did the exact same to us. Then I tell you, I still have painful memories as an 8, 9, 10-year-old John going to those matches. But
oh
hey,
God.
um, Wicklow, I was surprised by the feat, that they had. So
Oh,
they'll
that
have to bounce back there. Auckland won't be an easy place for
it's
anyone to go.
oh my God, Killian, but like my Jesus, like it's just going back to it. But Auckland back in the day, I think when we were playing Wicklow in 08 or 09, and I mean the commentary box was like a little, it was like a garden, it was like a garden, it was like a garden shed.
Yep.
Sean and Mickey just got up. I think that like a ladder up to it, and the tea was being handed into us, and we got a few packet of crisps, and it was a complete fortress.
Yeah, it is. And now I know they've updated the press box. Not a whole lot more. You have to battle with a few insects now, I think, is part of the problem down there at the minute. But yeah, it did a better job, and obviously, you said, still made it a bit of a fortress. And the Dubs had a good time down in Auckland there earlier on the Leinster Championship. But look, if Leash are to be serious that they're going to challenge Offaly, because they're probably factoring that they have to play Offaly at a neutral venue, which I would assume is going to be somewhere like probably Newbridge or something like that. They'll probably end up playing them. They're looking at maybe that it's going to be themselves and Offaly battling it out for that. The places going forward. They have to be beating Wicklow in Auckland. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be tough. There's no easy, and maybe Wicklow will target Laois because Wicklow probably would be expecting that. Well, we're going to lose to Offaly, so the games we're going to target is Laois and Waterford. So, that's going to be a factor. But I do think Laois probably haven't played, a division higher. They should be beating the two teams that were in the divisions below them. So they've beaten Waterford. They should be beating Wicklow. Then the challenge is obviously going to be Offaly. So it won't be easy. Won't be easy. 6 o'clock could be a right there. But look, I expect Laois to take it, but won't be easy.
I'm going to go with Wicklow.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah,
John.
yeah. I don't know
Oshie
what.
McConville has been on to you, hasn't he?
Oshie McConville. Oshie
He's giving you
McConville.
the insight.
Oshie
Going to be
McConville.
interesting, by the way, to fascinate the two Armagh boys on the line.
Oh
It's going to
Jesus,
be, yeah,
yeah.
that could be, you know, Ross Mundy could be the man in the middle there to kind of settle the two of them. But
Oh
anyway,
Jesus, yeah, yeah. Jesus, the pair of Crossbaglen boys. No, is it McNulty?
no, McNulty Mullabon, wasn't he?
Mullabon, and
Jeez, there's me giving you Ulster football history, huh? Huh? And there was lads slagging me off, huh? There you go.
and they're doing it for the love of the game, Killian.
Oh,
The
the
love.
love of the game. That's what it's all about.
And then you have Antrim against Limerick at Carrigan Park at 4:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, well, look, Antrim probably
Saturday.
unfortunate. Antrim probably unfortunate that they have to meet the two league finalists and they got the backsides handed them a little bit with Westmeath in previous attempts, and now they have to play Limerick after their league victory, in Division 4. Like it's I I'd be surprised, but like, look, who knows? Going up to Corrigan Park, to tight enough venue. You're looking at both of those games, and you could see you have Laois and Limerick both travelling away to tight enough little venues, and you could see the home side come out in both of them, and that throws all those groups wide open again. But like when you see Antrim, as I said, to come into Westmeath the way they did, and with Limerick, who play a nice, attractive brand enough of football, and obviously league winners, I think I would be given the nod to Limerick in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you have Tipperary against Kildare in Clonmel at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and Tip in Clonmel might be a different story. It's not in Semple Stadium, so it won't be wide open. They'll know Clonmel. every inch of blade of grass in it. But again, if Kildare are to be anyway serious, they have to be going down to that pitch, and they have to be putting at least another 30 odd points on Tipperary if they're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, seriously, John, that's the way I would feel about it. If they're going to be
Yeah.
taken seriously, they have to. The Tipperary project, as I said, Billy Ryan is doing his best there, trying to get a new crop of players in, and get them experience, and maybe start looking at a 2 or 3 year plan for that Tipperary senior team. But look, Kildare, to me, are and they are
No,
operating 2 divisions higher now than Tipperary, so they have to be winning that well.
Killian, my sincere apologies. I was only laughing because I thought you were going to say extend the pitch by 30 meters, and I thought a home advantage. That's how I
Well,
thought
they
you were
might be
going.
narrowing it by 30 meters the way things are going. I don't know if you've ever been in Clonmel, but yeah,
Never.
well, it's a tight little ground now, so they might be, if you got a vocal enough Tipperary football support, which is not massive, but if you got them, it might ask a few questions, but I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then you have Waterford against Offaly in Walsh Park at 1:30.
Yeah, Waterford put it up to Laois, but still were the guts of 10 points off. Offaly don't win by 15 here, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, I think so. And then on Sunday in the Tottenham Cup round 2, you have Leitrim against Sligo in Carrick and Shannon at 1:30. And of course, game will be live on GA Plus.
Could be a right little dinger now. Stevie Porcher, come on, make it worth it that you brought it into the county and try and upset the Sligo boys there. Like Sligo will be going into that game, uh, probably not overly impressed with their performance in the game against Tipperary. So they get out by 5 points at home. Now they have to travel to Park Sean McDermott. But like, to me, Park Sean McDermott hasn't been a fortress for Leitrim, which it should ultimately be. Um, there's there's definitely chinks there. I'm not sure it's obviously a happy camp in grand scheme of things, but taking on a local derby, Carrigan Shannon, you never know. They could cause a bit of an upset. I'd be surprised if it happens, I have to say.
Yeah, I think Sligo will
So
have more.
Sligo to get the win.
So, yeah. And then you have London against Westmeath in Ruislip at 2 p.m. I would not like to be a London cornerback, full back this weekend because I think Luke Loughlin is going to have a field day.
Yeah, he could have, unless the boys go the night before or something like that. This is the only way I can see London. But London would put up a credible performance. They have shown, but they're not at Westmeath level, I don't think, with some of the quality footballers that Westmeath have. So again, I'd be thinking if London get within 10, it would be probably a good performance. And I
Yeah.
could be, as I said, they could. This is a day that they could show a good performance. It depends on the Westmeath psyche and what they want to deliver. But yeah, I'd be fully expecting Westmeath to get the win.
Yeah, I think that's a foregone conclusion on that one. And then you have Carlow against Wexford in Netwich Cullen Park, half
Now,
two.
this one again, like as I said, Wexford might, as I say, keep an eye on Wexford. But you have a Carlow team now that are buoyed by that victory against Fermanagh, a home game. And Carlow have always been a little bit, when Wexford football was going well back in the noughties, Carlow upset them twice, I think, in a league situation where they were looking to get promotion. So Carlow and Wexford have that little bit of they're near neighbours and everything. They would play many a challenge match against each other. Clubs as well would play many challenge matches. It just seems to be two counties that gravitate towards each other a little bit sometimes. So don't write off Carlow in any stretch of the imagination. It could be tight. But I think again for Wexford, if they're to continue some of the upward trajectory, they have to be getting the win there. But that one, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a draw in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last game of the weekend, Killian, you'll be probably glad to hear at this stage, it's it. I'm making a good one. Longford against Fermanagh in Glennon Brothers Pierce Park at 3 p.m.
Yeah, well, if Fermanagh are to show any of I suppose, some of the good performances they had in the league, they have to be beating Longford. They have to be seriously disappointed the way they lost to Carlow. If there's going to be any element of bounce back, but this could be a game as well that Fermanagh might not be up for. John, it all depends on the psyche again. You see some of these competitions, and we know lads are kind of getting now to a point of, well, if this result doesn't go my way, the old J1, and it's coming to the end of May, and I'm after getting a phone call there from America. Will you come out for the summer and blah blah blah. This is where we're at now
Mm,
with some of these teams. So it depends on who turns up there on that day and wants it, because Pierce Park isn't an easy venue to go to get a result out of either. And like, you might give Longford the nod here on this one based on obviously, you've seen the performance from Fermanagh. Well, they kicked 218 and it's a fair kicking. They still lost to a Carlow team that lost the majority of their games in the National League, so and Fermanagh operating obviously at a division above. So I wouldn't be surprised if Longford got the win here.
Mm. Yeah. Who knows, Killian? Who knows? Well, it's great to see the Tailteann Cup going from strength to
I know
strength.
you look, you're playing down the neighbours. You see, you're trying to keep in with both sets, aren't you? That's the thing here. You see, I'm trying to work out the geographical spread here, John, for you. You're probably trying to just keep in with both of them,
I'm trying
just
to
in
keep.
case.
I'm trying to keep in with my bloody better half.
Yeah, yeah. But she's not listening at the minute, so you're all
No,
right.
no, she's gone. She's gone. She's gone. Jesus Christ, God help her.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on that, Killian, and it's a very good point you made earlier on. Like Brewster Park, Killian, is an absolute nightmare of a place to go.
Mm.
Like, Cavan have had good success, and Jesus Christ, it's been very good to our under 21s in years gone by. Like, but yeah, like Fermanagh always gave Cavan lots of good games down there. I remember a great game in 2013. You could even be looking at 2011. Lots of good success down there, but a lot of tight games. We bet like the Donegals, even Fermanagh's, Tyrone's, and it's such a tight venue. And like Fermanagh, if they want of any success in the Total Cup, they really need to make that Brewster Park a massive fortress. But again, you want crowds going to these games, and geez, we'll not go down the rabbit hole with crowds, but unfortunately, people aren't really going to these Tottenham Cup games, and it's probably tough on the players too.
Yeah, yeah, and this is let's not go down the rabbit hole again, John. This was something that was promised that this Tailteann Cup would get equal
It's
equal
not.
time and promotion, and unfortunately, I think it has slipped under because there's so much talk about the rules, but there doesn't seem to be any talk about the rules and how it impacts maybe the Tailteann Cup teams. Because Jesus, did we see the Ulster final? It was a great game, and um, but okay, we sorry lads, we had a round of the Tailteann Cup there last weekend. Did anyone know about that?
100%, yeah.
That's like. Is it a case in point we'll only talk about the Tailteann Cup when maybe some of the big players, the bigger players, let's say, of the Tailteann Cup come into the reckoning in what, about a month's time or thereabouts. I'm disappointed again. The Tailteann Cup for me is a great competition for these
Mm.
counties, but unfortunately publicity is just not there. And like what I have an issue, I know the calendar is squeezed and everything, John, but like when you put games on at the same time
Oh,
as the finals, like what are you doing? Like
crazy.
why would you
But
put the Tailteann Cup? There should have been nothing else on, nothing
but
else on
oh,
other than the provincial finals
but
last weekend.
yeah, but like even like Jesus Christ, even like I know obviously when I was down in Clones on Saturday, like and if you're going for your halftime cup of tea, or whatever, and you were saying like just what a game. Oh, by the way, the Tottenham Cup's on. People would have said like, "Are you mad?" Like it's
Mm.
just the promotion definitely around it, and but Joe, like what did you do? Big T shape and Croke Park, and so look, we hope for the best.
Yeah, look, as I said, I don't think we have another hour to go on this podcast that we can talk about it, but I
They can
just
do
look,
better, of course they can. Yeah,
yeah, look, it's just to
yeah,
me, it's an afterthought a little bit. Just get those games played, and then we'll worry about them, as I said, when they come out
hundred
to
percent.
semi-final level, because then we have to fit them into Crow Park. Just
Yeah, no,
what
you're right.
what is it ultimately doing? Like, and like, don't forget, John, we next Sunday there could be the guts of what would I say? Would it be fair to say in the Tailteann Cup there could be 8 teams who essentially have no chance of winning it, and they're putting their feet up, like, and their championship is done on the 18th of May. I know they'll have another round to play, but that's
Mm,
essentially what you're looking at. So
mm.
like, um, yeah, I don't know. We need to go back to the table and have a look at it again, but the counties have to want to win
Drive
it
it on,
and drive it on as well.
but oh, but the crowds at it, like I think even like I seen the picture of the Fermanagh captains before the game the other day, and then even with Cavan in the Tottenham Cup, like at the early stages off, I think we played Leash in Breffni Park, and like Jesus Christ, there
There's
was only
barely a crowd in the stand, sure.
yeah,
Like,
like so yeah,
it's yeah. Like I think I saw Westmeath, and they normally would be well represented, well supported by their football and fraternity and whatever within their county. But sure, it looked like there was only the families at it,
yeah.
But like it was at 2 o'clock on Sunday with the Leinster final on.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like a lot of people, because of a novel final, I would say a lot of footballing people if they weren't in Croke Park, were watching it on the television. So you mean
110%.
to tell me then that there was people? Do you know what? Westmeath are playing Antrim down in the Tailteann Cup in Cusack Park. Go down and watch it. Nah, sure, I'll be rushing to get back to watch this match. So I think
Common sense.
just
Common
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. But now don't get me wrong. If I'm the fixture secretary in Croke Park might ring you and say, John, you boys haven't a clue what you're talking about. I have so many dates. I have to get the fixtures in, blah, blah, blah. But like they put the squeeze on that themselves. They need to maybe have a look at it. But I just don't think the Tailteann Cup is, again,
In
we're in the situation where it's not getting enough.
pro
It's only going to become important to the four counties that
at
are
the latter
ultimately are looking
end.
at those semi-final, because at the
Mm.
end of the day, what's the carrot? Being Croke Park, getting the Croke Park
Mm.
one, but also being in the Sam Maguire next year.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And Joe, yeah. Oh, like, look, it's yeah. Oh God, I know. It's tough, and it's so funny. Like, there's a school of thought as well, Killian, that not to kind of prolong all this, but like Cavan, the group we're in at the minute, and not to kind of be, I know, like Westmeath are going to be in Tall Cup, Kildare's in Tall Cup. For the scenario Cavan's in, we're not going to beat Mayo, we're not going to beat Tyrone, and we're not going to beat Donegal. And I know you have to get to that level to compete in the All Ireland series, so on and so forth. But there's a school of thought where you'd nearly actually, Cavan would nearly be better off in the Tailteann Cup this year, the way the draw has turned out.
Yeah, but that was my thing,
And
and we
that's,
probably don't have enough time here, John. Why did the draw for the making the group stages had to happen before we had the provincial uh, winners and runners up known? I don't. Now, someone might say, well, sure, look, they needed to know so they could make the fixtures, because obviously we're starting the All Ireland series. But what, why did you have to start the All Ireland series? I know you have to get the All Ireland series played. There should be a gap between the provincial finals and the starting of the All Ireland series. You
what,
make the
yeah.
draw today after knowing all the winners and everything. So you had a table set up, and Cavan knew, oh Jesus, we're looking at our Leinster Munster finals here, and we're waiting. Sure, we know it's going. One was going to be Kerry. And like, you'd be lads going, we ain't going to win that game, no matter how hard we try. We're going to have to train for the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Like, we know 2 weeks out before the game that we're playing the. Do you know what?
No.
Raymond. I got a call
Oh,
there from
yeah.
America. Like,
Oh,
could you blame?
100%.
Could you blame guys?
No, no, no,
Now, I'm
no,
not saying
100%.
making the draw today
No,
was
no.
going to make any difference, but I just don't understand why we had to say the draw. Whoever will be the Leinster runner-up is going to be in Group 3, and
Crazy stuff.
like Loud knew if they won yesterday, they were probably in the easiest group. So it was that not enough of a chart. Like, to me, looking at the group now, I'd be very surprised if Loud don't win all three games. Now, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but to me, looking at the form that they're in, they should be able to win the three games.
Yeah.
So that puts them in a mix. But like, to me, you shouldn't know what group you're in until it all plays out. But hey, look,
Yeah.
it is what it is,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to be able to change it. And I'll probably, as I said, just get in more trouble for rattling the cage here a little bit. But like, yeah, but look, there's not a whole lot. I don't know how I get you released from your pain, John, with regards Cavan and what group that they're in. There's not a whole lot you can do. Like, if you want to be competing for the Sam Maguire, you have to be up there. So you won the Tailteann Cup. You're in the you get so far. You're into
And
the right
then,
division. You're in Division 1 or Division 2. You're in the running for it.
yeah, but
You know.
yeah, but and then look at there's a school of thought as well. We get to the final in 2022, get betting it, and then 23 down knocks out in the quarterfinals. So look at I don't yeah, there you go. There you go. But Killian Whelan, that was an absolute pleasure.
You're
Jesus,
welcome, John.
thanks very much. It was
We,
great stuff.
we talk some amount of, but anyway, look, sure, there's plenty there to digest and keep people interested, I hope.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Killian William, thanks a million for joining me this week. And of course, this podcast is kindly brought to you by yourgarage.com. Use my promo code GEMMAC Podcast to get 15% off on the website. Killian, thank you very much. Have a great
Thanks,
week.
John. Thank you. You too.